Aloha, everyone. This is Irene Nakamura with Talk Story Studios. Talk Story with Irene, mind your own business. It's a show about entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, and by entrepreneurs. And today with me, I have an extraordinary entrepreneur, Kevin Speir. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh, thank you for letting me come here. This is great.
I'm so excited you're here. And I know you've gone through different career changes and so forth, but I want to know right now, what is your business?
My business is called The Back Room. We do life coaching and consulting for individuals and small businesses. Most of my clients are individuals and couples who are grieving because they've had a loss or they're making a transition and they're having a hard time positively coping with a traumatic event or a change in their life.
That's really interesting. How did you come to start a business like that?
Well, it happened to me. I was a successful trial attorney. I was winning trials. I even had an opinion published in the law book, so I set precedent. I was really successful in my career as a lawyer, and then in a heartbeat, it was taken away. And I had to regroup. I had to find myself again and rebuild my identity, find a new self-image, literally reinvent myself. And that's how I started The Back Room. Because as a child, my father owned a little country store. And in the back room of that market, he talked to all his buddies that came to him with their life problems. And I saw these adults for 15, 20 years solve their problems together in the back room.
That's a great story. You know, I love the title of your company. It's very appropriate, and a lot of things happen behind the scenes that you don't all get to see. You know, you just see the things that are happening in front. So I love that you have that. And so tell me, so you were an attorney, and then what happened?
Well, in my small town, I was one of the more popular attorneys, I'm blessed to say. And then one day, I got in some trouble. I left the door open. What I've learned in life, if you don't put it in writing and you don't keep your door locked and run a tight ship, somebody can complain. And then there's no evidence to show who's right and who's wrong. And in this day and age, the district attorney's office always wants to clean up lawyering, and I'm for that. I want to clean up lawyering too, but I never knew I would be part of the cleanup job. So it was very difficult for me to face that, to be sitting in the jail for 90 days that I went to every day for 25 years and got on the phone and talked to my client, how we're going to fix this, how we're going to solve the problem. And through that years-long journey of solving problems, learning how to convince 12 strangers to vote for me, not the other guy.
Right.
I learned great problem-solving techniques. I never knew I'd have to apply them to me, but thank goodness I did.
You know, that is quite a story. And as a court reporter, you know, I know what attorneys go through in the trial in terms of their presentation and how to win over the jury's favor. So it's incredible, you know, your story about that, and then how you had to use it for yourself.
Well, I got some help because, as we've always been told, if you want to learn how to do something, find somebody that's good at it or even great at it and do what they did. So I went and found the most hurting, grieving, trauma-stricken person I could find, and that was the American Indians that lived in my state. And I interviewed them to get my PhD for my research project of my dissertation. And I asked them, how have you been able to cope with 95% of your people being killed by the Western European settlers, by my ancestors, the genocide, the colonization, being victimized by them, and then forced to live among your captors when they shoved you on a reservation? They kidnapped your children and put them in boarding schools to rip the Indian out of them and turn them into white people. How on earth have you been able to stay strong? And they said, Kevin, it wasn't easy, but you're right. We are the gold standard of resilience. And what we did and what we do every day is throw ourselves into our family, into our native culture, and into our spiritual practices, and into each other, because nobody can recover from trauma alone. So we work together, and we just hold each other up, and we remember who we are and who we came from, and to keep our ancestors proud of us. We do not give up. And I just thought that was the most heartwarming story I ever heard. And I applied it to myself, and it worked, and I apply it to others, and it works. So I'm proud of my framework and my blueprint for recovery, and I'm very proud that it was modeled after the most courageous people I could ever find.
Wow, is what I'm going to say. And, also, coming from Hawaii, I think Hawaiians also have a similar, background. And so you use the resilience techniques that the Native Americans have used throughout all these years for your coaching in the back room. Is that right?
That's exactly right. There's a lot of life coaches. There's a lot of therapists, and I'm all for therapy. I got a doctor's degree in psychology, so I could be a therapist. But guess what? Therapy is a bit long. It's deep, and it's life-changing, but it's not fast. And when you're living in pain, you want to get rid of that pain now. A short story. A couple I knew that had a big fancy home lost it in the foreclosure crisis. And when they lost that big home and had to move into a little apartment on the other side of town, they hid out from life. They were too embarrassed to see their friends. The wife never called any of her old girlfriends to go shopping or have lunch. The man didn't play golf or even talk on the phone to any of his lifelong friends. And after some time with me, I measured their success, or they measured their success by telling me, hey, I opened my address book and I called an old friend. And when you've been hiding out for 2 years, that's a big milestone. That's quite an achievement. And they started going to their friends' houses. They weren't too embarrassed and ashamed to be seen. And eventually, they got over that big bump in the road, and they got back on the high side of life. And I'm really proud of them. And they have a social life, they have fun, and that's the aging process. Because growth happens at any age if we give it a try, right? We can always reinvent ourselves, and we never know what the future will bring. And so if we have to solve problems that we never expected, we got to get tough, we got to find the right help, get the right community around us, and move ahead.
I completely agree. And you pivot when you need to pivot, and it's okay to pivot, right? So it sounds like you do a lot of really great work with people. What advice can you give, or maybe a tip or suggestion that you could give to people who are watching who may be going through some trauma?
Thank you for that. One good tip is your shame and your grief comes mostly from you. You're embarrassed, but the rest of the world, your friends, your relatives, they don't think about you the way you think about you. Oh my God, I don't want to go to the supermarket and have somebody see me and go, oh, that's the lawyer that got in trouble. I don't want to go to the mall or out with my children to an event and have somebody, oh God, Tracy, look what happened to your dad. Isn't that sad? I just was so afraid of that. And luckily, my beautiful daughters told me, Dad, nobody thinks that way about you because they know the real you. They know you got in trouble, and guess what? They know everybody gets in some kind of trouble. Maybe not yours, but it happens. And they still love you because you're a real person and you gave them your life for 25 years solving their problems. So they don't think that ill of you. You got to stop beating up yourself. So please, everyone, if you're having some shame or embarrassment, realize it's kind of in your mind. You're exaggerating it. Don't think that bad of yourself, and get together with someone, me or whoever you pick, so that you can do it together. I was lucky enough to get an emotional support person. I was afraid of my shadow when this trauma happened, and I found a friend who was in between, and he came and lived with me. And when he walked with me into the local supermarket, I didn't break out into a sweat. When he walked with me to go out in public, I could get by. And then after a few months, I got stronger and stronger. And then when I learned the resiliency tips and the long resiliency trip that the American Indians took, I really was able to bring it home and get complete healing.
So if you are experiencing trauma, and let's face it, who isn't experiencing some kind of trauma, just know you don't have to be alone. You don't have to do it alone. You can call Kevin right here. Where can people contact you?
Well, they can go to thebackroom.com, or they can go to the Backroom on LinkedIn, or the Backroom Facebook page.
Well, there you have it. Contact Kevin. And even if it's not for you, maybe it's for another family member or somebody who needs a resource. We all need help. We all need help. And, I am lucky to have met you here at this amazing event with Bill Walsh. Can you give us a little feedback from attending this conference?
I'd be so glad to, because Bill Walsh and this event has really been good for me. It's increased my fortitude. It's helped me feel boosted up and elevated. And I can't say enough about what he can do for you and the community that he's created. That's a room full of healers in there. And I was so proud to be amongst them. I'm so proud to stand next to them and to know that there are these great people out there that have dedicated their life to lifting others up. So I can't thank Bill enough for getting on Eventbrite, where I found him, and him encouraging me to come here to Chicago. And just a big round of applause and gratitude to Bill and his team and all the people that are in that room.
So just so you know, we are at the Ultimate Wealth Conference. And so, please look for Bill. As you can see, we both benefit from it. And, thank you so much for sharing your story. I love talking story with you and being with us on the show. This is Irene Nakamura with Talk Story Studios. Talk Story with Irene. Mind your own business. Aloha.
Aloha.